Hello, and welcome to the Medicine Mermaids podcast, stories of womb, water, and womanhood. We are your hosts, Naomi Maharaj and Naomi Ring. In this podcast, we're here to share real stories on all things women's health, embodied spirituality, and ancient feminine mysticism. We value authentic, sovereign expression, and our greatest hope with this podcast is to awaken the unique medicine that lives within each of you. The title of today's episode is Building a Soul-Led Business, Navigating Imposter Syndrome, and Staying Connected to Purpose. And now to introduce ourselves. I'm Naomi Ring, an integrative somatic healer, feminine movement facilitator, astrologer, and grief doula. I support women to get clarity on their soul's evolutionary blueprint and understand their ancestral imprints so that they can alchemize their wounds and feel empowered in life. My main tools are evolutionary astrology, devotional dance, family constellations and trauma healing, and more. My biggest pleasure is to guide women on their journeys home so that they can embody their wholeness and root into who they truly are.
And I'm Naomi Maharaj, a clinical herbalist and women's health practitioner. I support women in getting to the root cause of their female health symptoms that make it hard for them to feel beautiful, strong, healthy, and vital, while helping them remember how our bodies mirror the beauty of the earth. My work weaves together clinical herbalism, body image healing, German new medicine, holistic pelvic care, ecology, and so much more. I love helping women to reclaim their sovereign health and to remember the divine beauty that they are. So, welcome to episode 11 of the Medicine Mermaids podcast. We're so happy to have you here. And the truth is, this episode that we're talking about, imposter syndrome and navigating our soul business, that was not what this episode was originally supposed to be about. But, we are one with water, medicine mermaids, and we are learning to go with the flow and to adapt and to sense when things are maybe not at the right time and to shift, as needed. So we hope that you enjoy this episode. It's a bit more stream of consciousness. We'll be riffing off the cuff a little bit more, but I think that those episodes are usually the best. So we hope you enjoy this episode. So just a little bit of context before we dive in. Naomi and I have been wanting to record this episode for a while, but it is a little bit vulnerable because we're talking about tender points within our relationships with our own business, within our careers, within our soul paths. And it has not been a straightforward linear journey for us in the last few years. Naomi and I met I think it was 2021 or
Yes,
2022, and we came
2021.
together, 2021, and we came together because we had this shared love for healing and for women, you know, guiding women through their healing journeys. And each of us have our own modalities, as we shared in our intro, but we have this common thread of helping women heal. And so we've been kind of guiding each other, supporting one another as sisters over the years, and a lot of similarities in our stories. And here we are. So we hope that anyone out there listening who has a similar purpose or soul desire to help other women, other people heal, whether it's through astrology or through herbalism or through a different modality, that you feel some sort of resonance with our story and take something away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ready to dive in?
I did. Yes, I'm ready to dive in, and I'm very excited for this episode where we're just kind of, like you said, riffing off and going with it. So I'm gonna ask you the first question that we have for today, and that is, what has been the expectation versus reality of building a soul-led business? And this question has more parts, but we can start with that.
Yeah. Honestly, when I imagined uh, building a business. Honestly, when I think I started, that wasn't what I was really thinking about. You know, when I was when I was young, I was raised to, live a traditional life, to get really good grades, get into a really good college, and then when I graduate, to get a job. I think many of us kind of grew up with that parental guidance.
Mm.
But when I was 21, I decided to drop out of university. And that was kind of me feeling like I was breaking free from the mold of the family matrix, from the family system. And I went to go study herbalism in California right before the pandemic started. And when I did that, I wasn't really planning on building a business. I was just thinking, this is my passion. This is what I feel like I'm fine, like I finally make sense. This is what I'm here to do, to work with plants, to connect with plants, and to help people heal with plants. And then from there, things have evolved since then. But originally, I didn't have any expectation. It was only when I left California, moved to Florida, and was like, okay, I guess now I need to make money with this somehow. I need to transform passion into livelihood so that I can take care of myself. And that's when I, started with the whole, I guess I have to have a social media account, and I guess I need to get some business cards, and I guess I need to have an LLC. And that was also happening alongside me going to massage school. And so having classes about building a business online or not online, just building a business. So honestly, I didn't really have any expectations other than me doing my soul's work that I will be taken care of and that the business will flow, the clients will come, and everything will be okay. The reality of that has been much different. The reality has been not that much flow a lot of the time, feeling like, dang, why aren't the clients coming in? Why, despite my efforts, with the marketing or sharing my message with the world, why does it still feel like there's resistance or there's lack of flow, lack of clarity sometimes, and then ultimately issues with abundance and prosperity, like just to put it bluntly, right? Because at the end of the day, we live in a capitalist society that requires us to make money to survive. And each and every one of us is on our journey in making peace with that. And for me, my peacemaking has been being a healer and being a soul-led woman, not just in business, but just in life, leading life through soul, through my desires, through my heart, and then ultimately having to make money to take care of myself, right? So the reality has been not always easy, and there have been many moments where I just wanted to abandon it all. And also seeing a lot of other healers, friends, making ends meet and struggling to make ends meet, whereas other people I know who are in corporate jobs or, are living other lifestyles where they're not necessarily so connected to their mission or making a difference in the world, but just
Mm.
making money, raising a family and building a house and putting their ducks in a row sort of thing, seeing them thrive. And that has made me feel a lot of resentment as well towards, God, the universe, the system that we live in, myself, you know. Sometimes I've felt like genuine resentment about the choices that I've made. And is this the right path? Maybe I should have made other choices in the past. So that's kind of the general overview of the journey that I've been in terms of
Yeah.
dealing with expectations, realities of leading a soul-led business. What about you, Naomi?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you something actually, like
Sure.
randomly. Did you feel that when you have changed like the country you have lived or the area within a country that you have lived that has changed, right? That the amount of clients that you may attract or the opportunities, possibilities that you have, or how you felt about, your soul-led business, about the path you chose for yourself. Um, yeah. If it
Yeah.
has ever been different than what it is
Yeah.
maybe recently.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Like when I was living in the US and I had, my body work business, herbalism business, it actually, there was a point where I was actually doing quite well. I had a lot of clients coming in. However, there was also that thing of, dang, this is a lot of my energy pouring out, and seeing clients. There's a cap. There's a cap of the amount of clients, you can see in this sort of setting
Yeah.
that then it's like, okay, well, will I be able to sustain this? Is this actually sustainable long term? And at one point, I was really tired and I said, okay, I'm gonna take a break from body work. And I kind of went into another world, you know, multi-level network marketing. I had a Healy phase for those of you who know Healy or followed me during that phase. And that was around the time that I moved to Brazil. And then moving to Brazil, moving businesses online, that's where the shift really changed. And that's where, I tried many different projects and ways of being and ways of presenting my modalities and, just kind of shape shifting a little bit. And that's where the real challenge started coming in. So I know that building an online business is challenging for a lot of people, but especially people who are in the healing field where their integrity is of the utmost importance, right? They're not here to just sell some cookie cutter online course that makes them $1 million a year, but something that will genuinely help people and also reflects the integrity they have with themselves and their own healing journey. So, so yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I can relate to that because I think when we're working with like like mysticism and with like transformation, with like feminine wisdom, it's not always so easy to have like a cookie cutter anything. We're not selling like a very tangible product sometimes. And it's a lot about trying to fit it into some mold. So I don't know, that's something that came up in me, which I feel I also have some resentment towards because it's so much easier when people just meet me. I feel like people
Yeah.
just meet me one-on-one and they suddenly want to work with me. But when I have to translate it into the medias, it's just so sometimes lacking in translation. Maybe it's some kind of code that I'm supposed to break and I still haven't allowed myself to, or maybe it's just unbreakable, or maybe I don't know, it just it kind of leaves me feeling confused. So I think like I can, yeah, I'm gonna just continue from there. Um well, going into, what were my expectations versus reality in building a solo business, I can say similar to you, I started building my business without maybe knowing what I was doing for sure. I was like 22 when I began giving like classes, and I was in a yoga teacher training, I was in a belly dance teacher training. I was, doing all my like studies, some listeners don't know, but I did not choose a university career. I basically chose a bunch of different modalities and have studied a lot from like movement to family constellations to astrology to integrative public health to bioreprogramming. Like I just kind of went all directions, even like Osho energy healing and chakra readings in this like past life. But anyways, and so many more courses, and I kind of just built my own curriculum of studies basically. And I love that for on one hand. On another hand, sometimes it's like, why do I not have some kind of degree? And yet, I also truly believe we don't need one of those nowadays. And it sometimes does not give you all the experience, like the actually lived through experience that I know that I have in life. And with all that I've studied, it's embodied, it's lived through, it's not just textbook. So I appreciate that very much. And I know that there's many, many, many degrees that are very worthy of having and going through the whole process, university and everything. And some that are just, you know, whatever. The same can be said for courses, but basically I started off with, giving classes to my local people. It was pretty easy. People would recommend me. I was getting opportunities, like I'm not like big on human design, but from what I understood from my human design for whichever listener here who's into it, being a 4-1 kind of line or whatever, kind of brings me my opportunities through my network. So I am a person who has that like it's very easy for me to connect to someone new and boom, I get like some job opportunity, or I think I'm magnetic enough to get people to want to have something from me, but it does not translate to social media. And when
Mm.
COVID came, it was like, okay, getting all these different courses of how to bring everything online. And my expectation was that I would be some big person by now, not because I ever cared about having a bunch of followers, but I cared about the impact. I really wanted by now to be the girl who leads 4 retreats per year. I really thought by now that I would even have potentially my own school of evolutionary healing arts or whatever. I had all these visions that I thought were going to be super easy because I bought these courses and I did these, different coaching, whatever. And so I should be somewhere else by now. And you know, I have to say I didn't always apply myself as deeply as I could have, but I also want to say it hasn't always been accurate and it hasn't always felt like it always felt like there's some parts of business that is just it's not that rigid. It's there's something in business that's also very connected to our emotions, I feel. Like there's some work there that I feel that a business coach doesn't always get to with people who like really need that support to come out, in the world of social media. Like there is blockages that people experience about being seen, unseen. Like I could go into a whole tangent with astrology here and how it connects to Leo season and the nodes and how now we're moving into North Node in Aquarius and South Node in Leo and all the different like shadows that the archetypes bring us. And but we have these shadows within ourselves. We have certain parts of ourselves that sometimes don't want to be seen or that just yeah, I think that the kind of container that can hold and support one through that was not the container that I had.
Yeah.
So, yes, I could have applied myself more, but also just did not feel 100% in integrity sometimes. Like there's some businessy moves that I'm just not willing to do. Um, and so it's funny because we're talking about building a soul-led business and no one said online, but yet we're both referring to the online. And I think that's something that's impacting a lot of people in our generation, not just you and me. And that's why I think we wanted to talk about this because it's just very different. I think for me, the online or offline just makes it very different experiences. And sadly, or maybe it's not so sad because I know that I could have a bigger impact and reach because of online, but in some way it's just not for everyone necessarily. And I feel that I've spent a lot of energy trying to be somewhere where I maybe um, don't have right now the capacity to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reality for me, and that's what I have been trying to embrace and accept and not judge myself for because that kind of even drains more energy.
Yeah. I think thinking about online businesses, a lot has changed for our generation with the internet. I mean, the internet only started becoming a thing in like in the year 2000, right? 2000, 2001, in that kind of decade. And we're in 2026, and now we have AI and we have, social media and all of these different algorithms that are constantly shifting the way that we consume media. I mean, things have changed so much. Things change on a day-to-day basis. I mean, where the internet was 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, since the pandemic, there's been all of these shifts. And I
Yeah.
think following a non-traditional path, which is now becoming kind of more mainstream. More and more people are choosing to be influencers or have online businesses and to use platforms like Instagram to build a livelihood. There's no
Mhm.
roadmap. There's no roadmap in general, and there's
No.
especially no roadmap for people who are specifically in the healer's path. And I think that that
Yeah.
is a very unique path within building an online business that I think is important to kind of separate from, because I think anyone who wants to have an online business is often clumped together. And there's this stigma and kind of this, oh, you
Yeah.
just want to be an online blogger type reaction when you're like, yeah, I didn't, get a traditional university degree and, I work for myself, I'm online. Oh, you're one of those people. But I think choosing to be a healer is very specific, and it's a path that once you say yes to, the path brings you more or different obstacles than someone who says, yeah, I'm going to be an influencer. And not to judge or shame the influencer, we're just trying to pull apart that they're separate paths. But
Yeah, or
the
like
way
the business coach. I mean, teaching others to thrive in their business is beautiful because you're supporting people to have impact, but it's also quite different than like having to put yourself out there as, like you said, a healer. Like it's just
Right.
so different. And I agree so much. Like Instagram, it started in what, 2012? Like we're 14 years into Instagram and it's constantly changing. And
Right, with ads and,
this
reels, and the form of
algorithm,
content that people consume is changing, and the length of the videos is getting shorter and shorter as people's attention spans change. And
yeah, and
when we
the
come from a field
sound
that requires so much depth,
yeah,
right, and information, like how do we translate that into a 12-second reel to keep people engaged and
or
convert
six
them into
second reel
clients?
or three
Like,
second reel with a poppy song to go with it. Because if it's not trending, then you're not gonna trend. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I do want to say I see some beautiful healers out there who have managed, and I definitely believe it's still possible. With all that being said, I think there's a part in me that still thinks and believes that I can find my own way. And I have to say that sadly, I haven't always given that part of me enough space, and I doubted it. And I think that takes us straight into the imposter syndrome portion
totally.
of
And
this class.
I'll just say one more point here.
Yeah.
I think that for me, this thing that I would just mentioned of just kind of clumping everybody together just because you have an online business and clumping myself with the same, category as influencers has been part of my imposter syndrome
Yeah.
because it has taken me away from the depth and the immense importance of the healing work that I do. And the
Yeah.
truth is, like having an online business requires you to have different hats. It requires you to not just wear your healer cap, it also requires you to wear your entrepreneur cap. And
Yeah.
the entrepreneur cap requires you to be in the marketing and to be
Yeah.
in the accounting and to be in so many different things. And that navigating of the changing of the caps and keeping my identity as Naomi, here as the healer it's tough. And
Yeah.
again, I think it's more than possible. We see plenty of healers online doing well. But the question is, what is it with my path, with myself, my
Yeah.
journey, my identity that has prevented me, and the same for
Yeah.
you, prevented us from growing? Because we
Yeah.
know deep down, if God asked us, if God came down from the clouds and came and said, my dear Naomi, is like, do you believe you carry medicine? Our answer is yes. Of course, we know that deep down. But what is it that's like, what is
Yeah.
the kind of illusion, this
Illusion.
this veil that's preventing us?
I want to answer to that two things. One, in the Jewish calendar right now, it's the month of Elul, and it is said that in this month, because we're like, before Yom Kippur, which is one of our holiest days, God is actually in the field. So he's not in the skies, he like comes down to us. So one, I think he's coming down and asking, and two, it made me realize that one of the mistakes I've made, I know we haven't asked about mistakes, but I think I will own up to the fact that this has been my mistake, and it's to not appreciate the natural different hats that I have to wear, and just trying to wear one hat. I've been trying to wear one hat, and even if I'm taking this imagery of the wearing a hat, I think I've been trying to like put all of my hats on, but under this one hat, instead of like naturally switching. Like what if I want to wear this hat today and that hat tomorrow, and like keeping on, like hearing the same from the outside of like, oh, it just looks messy, it'll just look messy, it's not gonna work, you have to wear the same hat or otherwise it's gonna confuse people. And I'm like, nope, I think it's totally fine if I rotate my hats, and I enjoy wearing my hats because they look great on me. And I don't have to wear them all at once, and I can wear them separately, and I can choose when to wear them, and I can embrace that. I went too far with the hat stuff, but I think if I'm taking it into like the practical, it's like I am a creative and I am a healer and I am an like, you know, a dancer and I am an astrologer and so it's like how about I just allow myself to shine and put it out there and let myself be received as opposed to trying to control all of the pieces because for me at least in the end it comes down to I just want to allow the expression to flow and I feel that all these guidelines and rules have sometimes just kept me back from even approaching my voice and yeah it just
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
has brought a lot of sadness for sure.
Yeah, I resonate. And I want to just hold that grief, rather than trying to fix it and be like, oh, well, they weren't mistakes or, they're learnings, that sort of
Yeah.
thing, like we commit mistakes all the time. Yeah, we learn from them, but there's nothing wrong with us just holding the fact that we're growing through mistakes and they have, you know, kind of been along the way of us not being where we want to be. And I resonate. There's a certain grief of, being in my late 20s, early 30s and not being where we expected ourselves to be. And I know that's a common thing, for people to experience. However, we get to acknowledge that that's part of our journeys and it is what it is. But I know that that's not always going to be the case,
No,
for either of us or for any of us listening, you
yeah,
know?
I agree.
Things always change. The only constant we have is change.
Agreed. Mm,
It's more about what maybe step do I take or that connects me to that thread that will get me to that future place that I
definitely.
have been dreaming of for a long time?
Yeah. And I think it's a lot also about trusting our path. Like I have asked myself, and I bet you have as well, like, mm, do I really need this other outside support, voice, comparison, whatever, you know, do I really need to listen to someone? I mean, I want to answer like, yes, it's great to listen to someone who has succeeded and learn from them and take a bunch of tips from them and save yourself all the time you can because there's some gold out there from people. But also, what if we have our own way
Yeah.
and can find a way to balance both? Like, what if it's not about just what others can teach us and bring us in trying to copy some cookie cutter path as opposed to, you know, or fully trying on our own and never wanting to get any advice and just banging our heads against the wall,
Yeah.
right? So I feel like there's a nice balance in there. And um I feel for me personally, I need to balance more the side of listening to my own path and trusting it and letting myself kind of flow more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand. I think there's a difference between skill building with
Yeah.
others and then letting others define what's right for you to do
That-
with
That's a
those skills.
that's a beautiful way of wording it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So should we talk about the
Yeah.
elephant in the room?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, Naomi, how has imposter syndrome played a role in your journey as healer slash entrepreneur? And what do you think is the deeper message? What is it that imposter syndrome you think is trying to tell you?
Yeah. So imposter syndrome, I think, often comes, I think one part of it is like very natural, and I like mind that it keeps on coming because I almost feel like it just points out that something's like very important for me. Like it's very important for me to give the best and be in my highest integrity. And to really take my time to prepare, let's say for a workshop that I'm giving or for a session that I'm giving. And that voice that is afraid that, oh, maybe I haven't studied enough or prepared enough or know enough. I feel like it has a place, and I have a part of me that does not get necessarily like overwhelmed or afraid or listens to it too much and can contain it and say thank you because I know that what you're trying to show me is that I care a lot and that, yeah, my path involves a lot of integrity and desire to do the best that I can possibly do. And I love that. I think that's great. There's the other part though that is more like keeping me frozen or keeping me from. I think that's when in my journey imposter syndrome has, played this role of yeah, I want to say like in Spanish el congelador, like the freezer, just like keeping me frozen pretty much. I've said this like now 3 times, but it's yeah, really like not putting myself out there in the first place, which is very sad, because if I already put myself out there and I just like, I'm a little bit like feeling that fear, that little voice of like, are you even prepared? Cool, whatever. I can handle that. But like keeping myself from even putting something out there, that's that's big. That's like very um I think with time when that happens over and over again, it can feel kind of crippling and it can feel very like it'll be harder and harder to discern if that's like the truth or just a voice that can come and go. And yeah, I think again, the deeper message is to know, I think for me is to know that that's just a sign that I care and that I want to connect again to my soul led business, to my life purpose, to my gifts and my tools and my pleasure and my love and my passion for what I do, rather than a sign that I'm not good enough or that I'm not prepared enough
Mhm.
or that I can't. Because I don't think that's the message of imposter syndrome. And I know how imposter syndrome is like super normal. I don't I don't think there's people who like don't feel it at all ever. And if there is, I don't know what to say about it. I don't have a comment on that. That's great for them or who knows why that could be. But I feel like it's pretty human, and usually a sign of really wanting to really, really do our best. And yeah, maybe some deep insecurities to look at. So
Mhm.
yeah, and with that said, I know that it has sometimes frozen me, unfortunately, too much. So I am thawing as of recently and doing my best to, bring back life to, like when we do in Shavasana, when we start waking up from the deep slumber
Mhm.
and rest, just moving the fingertips, spreading the toes, beginning again to take a deep breath, and then, moving in whatever way is the most comfortable right now. So I feel like that's where I'm at with it. What about
Yeah.
you?
That's beautiful. Yeah, imposter syndrome, I think it's totally universal. I remember I was recently listening to an interview with Channing Tatum, who I just
Mm,
love. I love him as an actor. I love him as a man. I also love him as an entrepreneur, because I find his story really interesting. And I remember him being asked, he just signed this big deal to create like a Magic Mike in New York, like a big show.
mm,
And he was talking about how he has imposter syndrome after reaching this huge milestone. And that just made me realize, this is a very, I think, egoic experience, to use that term. Like all of us walking on the earth, we all have, our egos that are scared of being rejected and are scared of not working out, are scared of failing, all of these different things, scared of being seen. And on some level, we have to learn to work with it. And so I think that you and I, despite where we are in our paths, this is a natural process and we'll feel it even when we are successful and abundant and where we want to be. And I think it's learning to work with it. And I think that for me, some of the biggest learnings with imposter syndrome is one, seeing that the vision or the purpose is bigger than me. It's not about me actually.
Yeah.
Like I was maybe chosen in this body, in this lifetime, in this soul was chosen to live out this mission. But one, it's not just me. There's a lot of people living out this version of the same mission in a million different ways, and I'm one of them. So I can make this as much about me and about my childhood experiences and my insecurities and my personal weaknesses and faults. I can make it as much about all of that as I want, but I know there's a part of me that has learned that there's also something bigger here. There's something bigger that this is about, and it's about tapping into that bigger thing that makes it less pressure. It makes it less about the pressure that I feel on myself, you
Mm.
know? And I think that that isn't always easy in a day to day, when I'm sitting there thinking, okay, how do I share myself today? And how do I call in, my dream clients and all of that jazz? When I'm doing that, there's also part of me that's scared of, and not working out, failing. And I think we've
Mm.
both had to go through the journey, the sacrifice, the letting go process of being like, okay, this is my purpose and this is my mission, and it's here, it's not going anywhere. But Naomi in this lifetime also has bills to pay and also has things she needs to
Yeah.
get done, and that can only happen with money. So, you know, for me, it was the feeling of the ultimate failure of just saying, you know what, I need to get an online job, a part-time job that just pays my bills. And, you know, for me, for some people, I think it's really easy to just be like, yeah, I need to pay my bills, I get a job. But for me, it was a feeling of failure
Yeah.
of I'm no longer doing sessions with people and I'm, doing stuff online that I never thought I would do. But I think that's the maturation. I think part of the soul's journey is maturation. And for me, I'll speak for myself. I had a bit of this kind of fantasy dream of it just me opening my Instagram account and then posting a few things, and then suddenly I've got 10,000 whatever, and I have all of my clients, like all of my slots are booked. And, you know, it's not always like that. Sometimes these twists and turns happen. For me, it's definitely been twists and turns and twists and spirals and right? It's been like that partially for me to grow as well and for me to mature. Right? When I started, I think I'm the Gemini in me is like, I love so many things. And how do I put that together? And I've had to learn to let things go and to choose a few of them and just go with that. You can even see that in my astrology chart. Like I've got my sun in Gemini in the fifth house, and then my moon in Sagittarius in the 10th house. So I've had to learn to, decide what's my hobby and what's my personal passion, and then what is it that I apply into my work, into my soul career, into my business. And that process has not been easy, but that is the whole point. Like that's the evolutionary blueprint that we've chosen. So I think the fact that it's hard means that we're doing something right. Whereas I think we're taught to think if it's hard, that I'm on the wrong path or I'm doing the wrong thing, right? We tend to think easy means right when I think it's actually the opposite, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
not always the opposite, but definitely like there's something really worthwhile when things are harder and makes us grow and makes us go through some kind of journey, right? Because it doesn't have to be super hard, like miserable and we're suffering either.
Right,
And it
right.
also
Or
doesn't
for the
have
rest of our lives, right?
to,
There are chapters.
yeah, there's chapters, and I feel it's mostly about like what makes me feel like I'm expanding. Like I'm, like I started dance this year in January after having broken my leg in June of last year, right, in 2025. And so 6 months after breaking my leg, I started dancing every week in a very like, professional modern dance group. And last week we performed, which was amazing. And when I began, I barely had like the flexibility in my ankle to do like all the moves or even go on point or even jump onto my right leg, which was very frustrating. And I was not really great. And all the other girls felt like so healthy and so great and all this background in modern dance. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? And, come all these like 7 months later, and I obviously, got stronger it was hard, but I got stronger. It was, difficult, but I got stronger. I started from a place where I thought, like, what am I doing here? I don't have a modern dance background, but I felt like I was improving and I was growing into it. So, I know this is like a dance related example, but I feel like in this case, I wasn't necessarily suffering my way through it, and it wasn't easy and it was hard, but it was just like a rewarding hard. So, and I feel like it's also like when we say in yoga, like, you know, it's about like getting out of the position when you feel you can't breathe. But as long as you can breathe, if you feel pain isn't necessarily a sign that you have to get out. It's when you can't breathe any longer, right? There's all kinds of pain. So it really depends. And I feel like some pain really does bring growth and new capacity and a new reach. So I really like
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah, and I think we're not trying to say life is just always supposed to be hard and it's
Oh,
always supposed to be this struggle, but I think, like we said, there are chapters. And sometimes I think we hear a lot about like the fe divine feminine and being in the feminine energy of business. And if it's not flowing, then it's not meant to be. And if it's just,
yeah,
you're right. And I think that that can create this illusion that struggle is wrong or bad, or
yeah,
that we aren't supposed to go through that. And if we are going through that, well, we're not in alignment or we're not in the right frequency or whatever. And I think Saturn, which is the planet in astrology that teaches us a lot about connecting to our masculine principle, the father, the working through, like enduring through difficult times or
self-mastery.
chapters. Self-mastery is just as important as Venus, who's all about the flowing and the being and the feminine urges and right? And I think I'm going through my Saturn return, so I think that that's why I'm bringing Saturn up. But I think there are
I was gonna
chapters.
say, yeah, I love that you brought Saturn. I was like, she's going through her Saturn return. It makes so much sense. I'm so happy
But
I'm
I feel
part of
like,
this.
but I feel like Saturn is relevant just having a business in
Yeah.
general, right?
I love what you said because I think that's one of the problems I've also seen. It's you either find feminine-led coaches or very masculine-based coaches, and you rarely find this like feminine masculine. And from one person who's holding a feminine masculine who can. It's also another point. I feel like sometimes one person can't do it all on their own. We have to ask for support. Like that's probably like the number one thing that I've learned through this whole business thing. It's like we can't do it on our own. We need the support, but also don't let the support take over your own
Right.
voice,
Totally.
right? Like that's to sum it up. And like find, I would say, that feminine masculine balance because it's just like yeah, I think that's the sweet spot, it's not getting into any one of the extremes.
Yeah. And we
Um,
all figure that out in our
Polarity.
own way, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
we endure in our own way and go on our
yeah.
own personal journeys and learn receptivity in our own way. Like it's different
Mhm.
for all of us. There's no cookie cutter. And it always comes at some point in our episode, the bi individuality of the thing. Here it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
you feel like we go into the third question?
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll ask you, what
Yeah.
are some of the twists and turns that have disconnected you from your purpose, and how have you navigated that? And what are some tools that have helped you to move through the imposter syndrome? I guess we can continue with that a bit. Maybe we answer that one first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of the tools that help me move through imposter syndrome, I think one is actually healthy space from the thing that is having all this charge. So for me, for the last several years, there's been a lot of charge around I can't move my business through forward and it's my fault. And so actually healthy space has actually been really good. And I'm not just talking about, taking 6 months off of social media sort of thing. I'm talking about actually putting everything aside, all of my sessions, like all of it, talking to clients, my social media account is part of that. All of it. I've needed to have some breathing room. And I know that I've seen it as a failure in the past, like, oh, I'm just copping out, or, oh, I'm just blocked or whatever. But I think that there are times where we have to reroute
Mm,
And for me, in this year, 2026, year of the fire horse, whatever, my rerouting has actually been stepping away from my business. And that's happened a few times. It happened when I first moved to Brazil in 2024 or 2023, right? I took a step from body work, a step away from body work and seeing clients because one, I was just really tired. I was kind of, I won't say burnt out because I think burnt out is thrown about all over the place and it's something very
mm,
specific. But I will say I was very weary from being so in person, seeing clients, exchanging energy with clients, being in the healing world of, here's my service and here's the payment sort of thing. And so I took a step into multi-level network marketing, affiliate marketing. And I look back and I say I learned a lot from that, but there's also a part of me that feels embarrassed from that time. And, I brought Naomi into it as well, if you want to share about that. But I took about a year, maybe a year and a half, where I was like, I'm not seeing clients anymore. That's no longer my path. My path is to, you know, build a business in community with other people through this structure, developing about my abundance and prosperity through community structures, which I think is beautiful. The idea is awesome. Um, Maybe it is the future, but the reality of that was different. It was once again me having to put myself out there, me having to find people who wanted to buy this product, and somewhere along the way, I realized this is actually quite boring. And two, this isn't me. This is somebody else's creation, genius, baby project, right? This isn't mine. And my work is different. And it's about, I guess, returning to that and then finding a way that it's sustainable for me. So
yeah.
that's meant me taking a full retirement, retiring from in-person body work and moving to Brazil. I've had another phase where I was like, okay, I'll go back into that, I guess. I'll go back into massage but cycles complete. And I'm learning that, there are chapters of our soul-led business. And chapter
Mm,
one was, having this bodywork herbal business in the States. The phase two was, taking a step away from that and going into affiliate marketing. Phase three is something completely different. And it's requiring this metamorphosis phase
yeah.
of just taking a step away to fully emerge. And I know where it's going. I won't share about it yet, but it's emerging. And it's about giving it the healthy space and time without, throwing all this language at, well, I'm just, copping out or, yeah. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
you
So I think
answered,
I answered both. I think
yeah, I think I was gonna say, I feel like you answered both in your own way, and I love that. I love
yeah. What
that.
about you? What are some of the tools that have helped you move through imposter syndrome? And then what are some of the twists and turns that have maybe
Yeah.
disconnected you from your
Yeah.
purpose?
So I feel like it's interesting. I feel like tools that I've used to move out of imposter syndrome, well, I'm not sure if I ever like had a moment of like, let me use this tool and move through this. I feel
That's
like
so funny.
I feel
That's
like
so
God, yeah, I don't know, like I feel like God has been very generous with me where it's actually more like I get a message, like literally someone in the street randomly or someone from past, not past life, but like, from somehow I get the message of like, I want what you're doing. Where are you? I somehow get picked up energetically, emotionally. Like I get some kind of validation or confidence boost, and it's not me seeking it. And I know some people would say, well, you should be able to self-source and bring it from within. And usually I do. I find also ways to kind of like slap myself and snap out of it. But I'm not gonna deny that my very beautiful Leo self, my beautiful Leo sun and Leo Mercury and Leo moon, and all of the Leoness living within me, loves to have some sunshine reflected back onto her and get a little bit of warmth and someone saying, I love what you do. I love it. You're amazing. When you did this and that, it was so amazing for me. Why are you not doing this anymore? And when I hear those words, it's like I'm like, you know, or like seeing some kind of video from the past or whatever. So I think that is not necessarily a tool, but I feel very grateful to know how to receive um yeah, like compliments or love or being aware of the messages that I'm getting through others when I'm being told what they would want from me and letting that lift me up and remind me, oh yes, I have an impact in this world. And so this is I feel what has helped me move through imposter syndrome. And I'm not gonna lie, also it's like talking to my mommy because my mommy's really great at reminding me that I'm amazing. So so yeah, that's the very, very real thing. Not hiding that. And the twists and turns. Well, when I was listening to you, a lot came up as well. But wanting to listen to you, I didn't really go into it. So now I'm like, okay, what were my twists and turns again that disconnected me? But I have to say, one thing that stands out for me is, well, my life has had a big twist and turn. Back in 2021, I chose to leave from Israel and go follow my brother's dream in Costa Rica. And I in some way I sacrificed a lot back then because I really had clients and I was like doing a lot here and I was growing here. I was like, the yoga and twerk teacher. I had like this thing that I had started and I was really, you know, for a while, like getting more and more. And I still, for like the first 2 years after I left, I've given a workshop in Italy. I've been invited to be part of like a retreat, like I've had some nice opportunities that came my way after, always still related to movement and dance. But at some point, and this was a huge twist for me, I kind of, for some reason, lost that. I lost the movement part of me, and I started almost believing that that wasn't the thing. And because I don't know, maybe it was because my body changed. Maybe it was because I was more isolated in the middle of the jungle. Maybe it was all the grief. It like was still a part of me. Movement will always be, but suddenly it was like I was pushing myself um to have to do other things because I had other tools and I wasn't valuing enough how therapeutic my main tool of movement was and how much I was already giving, like how movement has always been my channel through which I kind of pour all of the other tools in, or through. And for some reason I started trying to be something else, or not something else, but something more, right? It wasn't about being something else, it was about more. And yeah, a lot of, I want to say, just mind fucks of like, I need to be like this or I need to be like that. And I think it was just like a lot of distractions. Those were the twists and turns. And part of it, yeah, maybe was getting that invite of like being in the Healy world or whatever. And like I was pulling myself into all these different directions. But it started even before that, it was just like trying to almost justify that I'm a soul-led business because dance or movement didn't feel like it was enough. I don't know how I got into that place, but instead of like following my desires to keep on doing that, which brings me so much life and others, I just kept on trying to do other things. And it actually went well for me also in other areas for a while, but it's almost like it's on and off. The button is like it goes on, it goes great, it goes off. And I think it goes off when I disconnect, which makes a lot of sense. It's like I lose the thread of my purpose and the impact I do because I let in the imposter syndrome. I let it tell me that what I do is not good enough and I'm trying to do more. So I feel like that's how I would summarize it. Like I would kind of want to strip away those voices, and it's really always about coming back to the that beautiful foundation and root that I have of like what I do is already enough. All that I've done is already enough, and it has so much potency there. And yeah, there's like no need to reinvent myself every 5 seconds or try to do more and more and more. And it's really about coming back to what has already worked. There's always that fear of like that's old, and like you said, sometimes cycles end, and there's this ending. But um yeah, I feel that like what helps me navigate the twists and turns is just coming back to my basics and to my foundations, and that
Mhm.
also is the tool that I use. If I were to name a tool that I use on my own without needing the outside support to get out of imposter syndrome, is every time I just dance for 5 minutes, or I just shake even for 5 minutes. It's really incredible. It's probably like the simplest thing to do out there for an able-bodied person, right? And it 100% connects me, like clicks me back and tells me like, yes, wow,
Yeah.
potent. Yes, you got this. Like, yes, it's that simple. Yes, it gets to be, I don't want to say easy, but like it just it just gets to flow. And um yeah, that's, I think, does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. And I think to add, I think, it's interesting that with you and dance, kind of this is your foundation and this is your core, and kind of dropping the ball with that and going in many different directions. For me, it was the same thing with the herbalism, right? I came in with herbalism, medicinal plants, like that is like complete heart soul resonance. But then throughout my own healing journey, I noticed that. And we'll talk more about this in another episode, but plants weren't always in my personal healing journey what did the trick. And so I kind of have been on this spiralic learning journey of exploring different modalities and coming to different places. And all of that informs myself as a healer because my personal healing journey is the most important education in being able to help other people. And I think that you and I have that similar, right? If it were just one thing, if dance were the thing that, made the world go around, I'm sure you would just be doing dance. But like you said, there's a part of you that's like, this isn't enough. And there's that quest, that inner quest to find the other things, and which has led you to the different things that you do.
And also, when I was teaching dance, it has never been just dance. It has always been a mixture of all the things that I've gathered. Even when I was doing yoga and twerk back then in 2018 and 2019, and I wasn't yet an astrologer, all my classes revolved around the new and full moons and the archetypes. And I was like mixing and weaving in shamanism, and like it like was never just one thing. It was just like dance, like movement was the, I guess, the container, but it wasn't the only thing. And so yeah, it.
And I think that that's natural. Like, I don't think we need to pathologize the diversification and the weaving of all of the different things, but I do think that sometimes a part of us does it because we don't feel like what we have to offer is enough, so we mix it. I think there's both things are true, right?
Yeah.
Both things are true, that we're curious and we like exploring different things at the same time. And then there's another side that's also like, but I also don't feel fully enough, so I keep doing courses and I keep
I
learning
think we
more.
can
And
tell. I think we can tell when the thing is being forced, right? When the
yeah,
whole thing is being forced and it's coming out of, oh, this isn't enough. No, they're probably gonna feel it's not good enough. And when it's just coming from like, we're bridging and connecting languages from different worlds into one creation that's very unique, and it's coming from the soul, it's coming from the heart, right? It's a delivering of a transmission that's bigger than us, and it's
right.
not being forced. And so yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I also think, we have to take into consideration that we're in the information age, right? There's just so much information that that we know, and our soul is limitless. We've lived so many different lives and connected with many different medicines. And so every time, a new modality or a new medicine is brought to us, I know that a part of our soul lights up because we've lived it and we know it, right? But it's the learning of the Gemini is like knowing what is the medicine for this life, or what is it that is truly the path for now, because it's not possible to do everything and be everything. And
Of course, that's the Gemini. Like, for the listeners who don't know, Naomi has the whole like Gemini sun in the fifth house Leo, and I have like ascendant in Gemini. So like we just relate to these things, and that's why we're talking about this. Um, but I feel like, Gemini is the networker, right? Like it loves to network, it loves to connect. Like I imagine Gemini sometimes at like that little mushroom that has all the like underground connection.
Totally. Gemini is a
Like just like,
mushroom.
ooh. And so I really know that we're wanting to look at Sagittarius to like give us that like the
That arrow, that true north.
arrow, like bring in some like discernment, some I don't even have the words because my Gemini is like we want the scattered. But yeah, definitely something happened. But definitely there's definitely medicine in Gemini's capacity to just build those bridges and have those connections between all the information and not get too carried away, right? That balance, because we would also not want to be too dogmatic. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right. And I think that there's a beauty to the weaver. I think it's a weaving thing. We have a weaving thing, right? But
yeah,
there's always a central thread, right? When we're weaving, there's always a central thread. When you're braiding, there's always a central thread.
yeah.
And I think what we've both learned is to make sure we're holding on to that central thread always. Even if we're bringing in, weaving new things, there's still the central thread and we're holding it.
I feel it's a beautiful way to finish this podcast and like the message also of what it is to build a soul-led business. I feel it's that beautiful imagery that you created for us of holding on to that central thread, allowing the weaving to happen, all the ins and outs and twists and turns and continuing to believe in your vision and your intention. And even if you have moments like we've had and many people have where okay, survival mode kicks in, we have to get the money, we have to leave aside our business for a moment, come back, but as long as you have that central thread, I feel like you're going places and you can do it. And it's important. I feel like we both know, even if we have our off days and the imposter syndrome days or hours or minutes or whatever it is, we both know how much our medicine is needed, how much each and every one of us have unique medicine to share with the world. We all have something to give, something to say, something to create, something to, like extend forward and share with the world. And
Totally.
yeah, I feel it's definitely important and we just can't let the system get us down. No, no.
No. No, I think I probably say this in every episode also at some point, but it's
Yeah.
like learning to cut the noise. We're
Yeah.
constantly surrounded by noise, and I think imposter syndrome is a very mental loop pattern.
Mm.
It's a mental loop pattern that I think is created also by a lot of the noise, and it's about
And
us knowing.
comparison, a lot of, and the
Yeah,
noise, I would literally say, like, if you're going into Instagram as a sole business person and you are consuming it, and that's a lot of noise to be letting into your system. And a lot of comparison can happen naturally, and it's so good to know how to cut that out. And yeah, block out some of that extra noise, that like very natural urge to, it's not even an urge to compare, it's just like it happens almost. And I feel like imposter syndrome sometimes gets like sparked out of that very quickly. So it could be a
yeah.
good tip to time your social media consumer time. Okay,
Well, I feel complete. How do you feel?
I feel very complete.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in this episode. We hope that you took something away. If you have anything you want to share with us, leave us a comment, subscribe, do all the things. We would love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in our next episode.
You